All right, Liam, welcome back to another episode.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good, good. So we've been like chatting before hitting record. We're like, all right, let's just hit record on this because we've been talking about some kind of interesting topics. We both have some strong opinions on it. I'm not quite sure where to get into this, other than I'm gonna maybe start by reading the Elon Musk quote.
Yeah,
Want me to start there? Okay.
sure.
So this was like, I don't know, about a month ago. Elon Musk, he's on an episode of a podcast called Moonshots, which is a podcast by Peter Diamandis. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And on the show, he says, this is a direct quote. He says, quote, "Don't worry about like squirreling money away for retirement in like 10 or 20 years because it won't matter." All right. So that's what
Yeah.
he said. It's gotten picked up in the media a ton, the financial media. And basically, the requote that everybody is saying is that Elon Musk suggests that you don't need to worry about saving for retirement. So let's get into that. Let's chew on that. What's your initial thoughts on this?
So there's this Elon is actually taking a stance that I think is not, I'm not going to say unique, but many other people are taking the other side. There's this bifurcation of the prediction of the future happening. Most of the market and content creators, observers like ourselves are talking about the repercussions of AI. We talked about in our last episode, Trinity Research, one of their, associates came out with a creative writing piece where they predicted the future 2028. If we're in 2028, we're looking back 2 years, in the summer of 2028, looking back now. And he wrote about the current economy. And essentially is AI continues to advance exponentially, making white collar labor obsolete, which reduces the spending power of the main spenders within our economy, those that have the white collar jobs. And this like negative cycle happens where everybody's losing their job, nobody's spending. So even though AI is so great in these companies, they're not selling it. There is no economy essentially. And so the economy's crashing, unemployment's crashing, and the world's taken over by AI agents. But that's like the doomsday outlook. And Elon, because I think it's economically wise for him to take this stance, is saying if all goes to plan, we'll have cars that drive you around, we'll have robots that deliver your food or are doing the blue collar work. We've got agents that are doing the white collar work. Humans will be left to not have to work. And instead, he's saying, saving won't be important. And he's always way off in his predictions, but he's saying saving won't be important in 20, 30 years because essentially the economy will fund itself and we'll have this self-sustaining economy where humans don't have to work. They don't have to save. We're all just cashing social security checks, or I don't know, would we even need money if there's no one selling and buying the goods? We're going to the store and picking up what we need and leaving. I don't know. And
It goes
he's
back to like a
always,
straight barter system of like goods. Like, here,
yes,
I have a can of this. Would you like
right.
this? Okay.
I think his take is lunacy, but I also think the doomsday take is blown out of proportion as well. It's been now proliferated by this Anthropic research that you and I were talking about before, which is kind of an ugly looking chart. But what it's showing is there's a circle of all of the like major categories within the United States of jobs or careers within the United States. On it is business, finance, computer math, architecture, engineering, all the way to agriculture and food and service and grounds and maintenance. The red within this chart, which we'll put up on the screen, shows how far AI capabilities have impacted these sectors so far. And the blue shows where they're going to go, right? Or their potential capability,
Mhm.
extension, and impact. There's a big portion of this graph that's covered in blue, and all of it is the white collar work. It's management, business, finance, computer math, architecture, engineering, legal. I don't know why arts and media. I think maybe those shouldn't be mixed. Media, definitely, maybe not the arts. All of it's covered in blue, whereas food and service, grounds maintenance, construction, agriculture, they're saying AI won't impact, but all that white collar work will be disrupted by AI. So this is now fed into the same narrative that Citrini started with, which is AI will get exponentially better, take over the white collar work, and disrupt the economy, maybe beyond, irrevocably. What's your thoughts? Did you read this research the same way that I am?
Yeah, the one by Claude or by
Yeah,
Anthropic, I should say.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and let me tell you a quick background. So you're head of insights at Jump. One of your colleagues, Peter Olson, had turned me on to a different Peter, and I can't think of the guy's last name. Do you know who I'm talking about? There's another head of insights.
Peter
I can't.
Walker.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had a LinkedIn post, and maybe we'll try to link to it in this, but basically what what he did is he took the graph that you're describing and he said, "This is horrible. Nobody understands how to read
Yeah.
this." And so he reconverted it to a bar chart
Yeah.
and he's like, "There should never be any type of circle chart. It should always be it's way easier to understand it." So, okay, that was my soapbox. But yeah, to me it was really interesting because it like you said, it shows these areas that are theoretically able to get advances from AI in different job categories. And like we were chatting about before we recorded, I think what's interesting is this weird place of, like you probably need to skill up if you want to
Yeah.
protect your job.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's some of these jobs that actually don't require as much skill that are at least safe from AI,
Sure.
right? Like
Sure.
you were kind of mentioning, like food service is one that's on here. Like nobody probably grows up saying, I really want to work in food service, unless
Right.
you're a chef, right? But at least like that job category is safe. Like I have some nephews that are in the trades. Same thing. They don't need to learn how to program. They don't need to learn how to use Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. Like their job, like they will always be safe from these types of things. So it's weird. So that's why when Elon Musk says 10 or 20 years from now, no one needs a safer retirement, that's where I have to call BS, right? Because it's like, no, all of those jobs will still exist. And so maybe like to your point, the white collar jobs will be changed dramatically. The landscape could be completely different. But also that to me is like the reason why you should save for retirement even more so, right? Like if you're in a at-risk job category. So those are my initial takes anyways.
Let me lay out a few things for you. First of all, Josh Brown and Michael Batnick have been talking about halo assets for a while. So these are the high asset, I forget what the low overhead, maybe assets is what they're, yeah, low obsolescence. Thank you. So these assets are like Home Depot or, Lowe's. Those are the same thing. What else is on this list? Delta. AI is not replacing an airplane, right? It just won't. That's what they're saying. And so the Delta business model won't be disrupted. It could be improved. AI, machine learning have been used by a lot of these companies for a long time to improve based on prediction capabilities, which is what they were really made for. But this chart that Anthropic created in their research is the halo of the job market. And I think one of the impacts of this, actually, I'll break it down into two impacts. Number one is college is going to be disrupted. And that's now, I think every board of private and public institutions are talking about how we adjust curriculum to adhere to a new future. This is the same in financial services. You and I talk about this all the time. The CFP is going to become completely obsolete because the CFP teaches you how to do analysis, right? And it's good. There's different sections of the curriculum. Most of it is being a financial planner, which is detailed analysis of how to assess somebody's portfolio and align it to their retirement goals. Well, if AI is doing all of that end to end, why would that be the designation or the curriculum within the designation that signals your integrity and credibility as a financial professional? I don't think it will. Same goes for college, though. If you no longer have the need for these white collar workers, which is where college has played the largest role. College universities in the United States are always teaching the majority of them. They're all teaching liberal art degrees, but most of them are teaching the highest salaried, median salaried positions. That's their most common degree. Engineering was that for a while. Then it was computer science, quantitative finance, so on and so forth. If those become obsolete, what are colleges or universities going to start teaching? What are they going to start investing in to build curriculum around? Agriculture, construction, food service and grounds maintenance? They have these things, but those departments might get larger. I don't know that to be true. And the second thing that I want your take on is entrepreneurship might become the main job in the United States. If the entire world is run, and if you can create anything, but the entire world is run on agents, but you can solve a problem now with less money and less labor than ever before, and you have no other alternatives. The opportunity cost is actually lower because you have no white collar job. Some of our smartest individuals and most well educated, I think, will start their own thing. We've already seen a little bit of that with this rise of AI startups. I think it's going to be blown way out of proportion if this continues on the path we're on. But your thoughts first on universities' curriculum being changed.
Well, I want to comment on the last thing that you said, because it's something I've been thinking about a lot, which is this gig economy that we've seen for, I don't know, whatever, however many years. I mean, at least since COVID, it seems like it's been a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to, it was a podcast on My First Million as the name of the show, and they had done a segment on this, which was really interesting to me. They were talking about how making apps is
Mm,
like kind of cool again.
yes.
And it's like, it was this thing, say 10 years ago. And they're like, what do you mean people are making apps? And that's like a thing. It's like, yeah. And it's because, like what you're saying now, without having to learn how to code in JavaScript and da 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 da. Like, I don't need to know any of that. I can have Claude do it and do Claude code, and then I just got to figure out how to get it right. Or even like they were talking about in the show, they had an example where, like you were just mentioning, someone that's a white collar worker, maybe they're making a couple hundred grand a year. If they want to, like, for them to justify, say 10 years ago, or even a couple of years ago, for them to justify leaving their current role, combining with a group of 3 or 4 other, programmers, whoever, to now create this app to hope that it works out. It's like, geez, that's a really hard bar to cross. Like, right. Whereas now it's like, actually, I could probably like legit do this in a couple hours and just put 10 of them out there and see which one of them pops.
Right.
The other thing that was interesting to me, and you're much younger than I am. I've never really been on TikTok, but they were talking about in that show how the new business model is
Mhm.
to not actually build the app first, is to go on social media, go on TikTok, create videos about it, make fake and like hold their phone up and make it look like there's an app on there and see which one of these 10 different ideas goes viral.
Mhm.
If they get over 100,000 views, then they actually decide to make it. So that was like a fascinating like way to test
You
the
know,
MVP, right? Like the
right.
minimum
Yeah, yeah.
viable.
This is true demand testing, which we've always had like a challenge with. Now we actually started something like this when I was working at EY. We would run experiments for financial services firms. Something they would always ask is like, should we create an advisor client matching quiz? Should we introduce a new cash management project? Now I have valuable proprietary data at Jump. I can answer those questions to a greater degree. But what we were doing was creating burner ads where we'd create a fake ad for a client and advisor quiz. We'd launch it to our core demographics via Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever, and we'd see how many people clicked on it. Now, it's tough because if you get 2% of all viewers to click on something, is that good or bad? I don't know. Testing, this is like an A B test, the top of the funnel of an A B test. It's much better in the middle or the bottom of the funnel because you can see how changes impact conversion. But at the top of the funnel, it's always been difficult. So this is like the new form of demand testing. I did talk to Nate Hoskin recent, one of the co-founders of N2 and Sage, a hot financial services firm doing video marketing for advisors. And we were just chatting about the future of financial services. I had asked him, there's a shortage of advisors in the United States. He suggests that we'll have a shortage of 100,000 advisors in 3-4 years. I'm not sure if you've seen that research. We'll put it up on the screen. And he said, that's not really true. It's just nobody is becoming an actual financial advisor anymore. They're financial behavior coaches and they live on TikTok. And there's more of them than ever before.
Mm.
People soliciting advice via social media is the gig economy that you're talking about. And I think it is the beginning of what I suggested, which is the exponential growth of entrepreneurship in the United States and elsewhere. But I think we'll see it here first because of our adoption of AI and social media. But there's going to be less CFPs in 5 years for sure. almost guaranteed. There will be maybe X the number of financial advisor creators, content creators on our existing and future social media, though. So this is the start of what I think the gig economy that you just talked about coming to fruition.
I don't know. I'm going to push back a little bit on that though, because
Okay.
to some extent, I feel like, and maybe it's just my demographic, that is someone still going to, yeah. And like AI keeps getting better and better and better. It is ridiculous, right? And you and I use it each daily. It's awesome. But I still feel like at the end of the day, a lot of people, it's like what you're saying. People want the advisor that, and it is more that, it probably is more of that behavioral coaching, but I still feel like that person needs to be able to verify, um, the information that's being output from these.
Definitely.
And again, it's going to get better and better. So like, having said that, but I was just talking to somebody about this recently, that one thing where I feel like AI historically at least hasn't been as good is that if, let's say, you're trying to engage in it for like creating a financial plan, it's not great at knowing exactly which follow-up questions to ask, right? Like we all have that friend. The joke I always have told is we all have that friend that's a know-it-all.
Hmm.
And I feel like AI is a bit like that, where it's just like, okay, you asked me a question, here's the answer. Where like
Yeah.
a good professional, a good specialist is like, hey, that's great. You told me that information, but that's like a little piece of this total pie that I need to know before I actually make a recommendation. So I do feel like, at least today, currently, that is where the benefit of being a professional is, as opposed to. But to your point, it
To
could change
say
significantly.
that is going to be such a non-issue I mean, it already is. If you have a trained model for a specific task and you give it that feedback, right? And what you're saying is what I believe to be true as well, by the way. Like a human advisor, I'm not saying that those are going out of business. I'm saying people my age and younger, really younger than me, because I'm not making a decision about my career, right? I'm 30 years old plus. I'm in the millennial category. The Gen Zs and below, I think they're called like Gen Alpha.
Mhm.
I don't know. They're not becoming financial advisors. It's just not happening because of the reasons we've talked about today, which is number one, it's a white collar job at a university that's going to cost money. Number two, there hasn't been a great plan for legacy, right? Because it requires a current advisor to give up their cash flow stream, their business, right? Hand it off. There's just not a great solution for that today. There are solutions at specific shops, but not one for the entire economy of advisors. And number three, like the entry into the job, it's such a long workup to profitability, as is any great job or sales job specifically, right? You have to grind it out, but growing a book of business is so difficult that it's just become less and less appealing. So I'm not saying AI is killing it. Now, because it's being killed and AI is coming up, I think it will fill the need of the mass affluent, which we've never been able to do before. And the mass affluent is going to be a huge proportion of our population. There are more millionaires today than there ever have been in the past. There were more millionaires made last year than there ever have been in the past. And it's not because people are wealthier. It's because $1 million means something different than it used to. But it's still hard to handle $1 million. No matter how impactful that 1 million is within the economy, $1 million garners the respect and the attention of a professional. Now, I think that professional won't be human. I think for anybody above 5 million or whatever the number is, you're still going to need an advisor and you'll pay more for the advice. But I think for this group that's been underrepresented within the advisor community, the mass affluence of the world, that might not be worth an advisor's time. You know, how much I used to do this profitability analysis at EY and past jobs, we would focus on, can we capture a client early in their life cycle to get the lifetime value? And if you capture the average client around 35, which is like when they're starting to make a decision about a financial advisor, they're not going to be profitable for the first 15 years on average. You're not going to get that person to be profitable until they're 50. Advisors don't want somebody in their book for 15 years that's not profitable. That's why these people are not ignored. It makes complete sense, and I'm not blaming either side. But that's where I'm thinking here. That's why I think AI and those who use it and the gig economy and these entrepreneur entrepreneurs that are giving advice or soliciting online are going to fill a need that maybe hasn't been filled in the past.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I feel like even some of the papers that I've written in the last year or 2, that's kind of the takeaway has been that when there's, like, less complexity to a plan or planning needs, AI can do a lot of that heavy lifting, right? And that might be and we even see that in terms of when we look at someone that reports financial stress and someone that is in a lower income reports financial
Yes.
stress, and whether they use AI or a planner, you actually
Yes.
see a bigger stress reduction when they use AI as opposed to using a planner. And I think some of it is because of what you're mentioning. It's like there's a lower, like there's less judgment for one, right? And I don't have to worry about, because I get that even with my own firm, we'll get people that will email in. I just had one a couple weeks ago where it's like, "Hey, I just was hoping you could just look over my stuff." And we don't really do that. Like, if you're gonna work with me, we're gonna do retirement planning, and we're gonna work with you, through retirement and, all the way throughout. So I'm part of the problem in that sense, right? Like that you're mentioning. But like there's another segment like that you mentioned, I think is going to be key for them to have access to these generative AI tools that can handle some of these lower level topics, like maybe it's some simple budgeting. And now, it'd be pretty easy if people are using online, mobile apps. How easy would it be to now you got to be careful with that, but if you could download your expenses that also have your paychecks in it, how cool would that be to share that with an
Hmm.
app that maybe works with you that says, "Hey, look, I've actually noticed you've been spending more on, whatever, beauty treatments lately." I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, you could play and you can have it could be conversational, which would actually be really
Right.
cool.
Well,
Maybe we
and
just create
an
a business.
agent, the promise of an agent will be, think of it like this, right? I make a certain amount of money. It's going to know that. It's going to have all of my expenses from the past. Then it will be able to, I'll say, hey, look, I want to be able to retire when I'm 50. So just start making the decisions for me.
Yeah.
Save the money, like automate these, cancel my expenses that I don't need, like be my, not advisor, just be my financial decision maker. It doesn't mean you don't need an advisor, right? But for most of the world, like 90%, you know, that don't require financial advice because they don't even meet the minimum, right? How many, United States citizens have $500,000? Like what would be a minimum for your practice
Yeah. And
for
we keep
somebody to,
Yeah,
yeah.
we keep bumping it up, right? And it's just like to your point, like you get big enough and you're like, okay, now we're only taking people with 1 million, right? And it goes up and up. I was just looking at this not too long ago with Survey of Consumer Finance actually has some really good data on the percentage breakdown of this.
So, and I just chat GPT'd it, and you're gonna
Cool.
get the good research, but I just asked what percent of Americans have 1 million of investable assets, right? Which is the investable assets is, I'm guessing, what you're using as your metric, and it's 1.5 to 2.5%. Okay, so if advisors are only serving those with 1 million, that means 99% of Americans don't need advice or aren't eligible for it. There has to be a different solution for them. And that's going to happen through the democratization of advice through AI. And there will not be advisors as much as I think there'll be advisors online, social media, but the agent will not be about giving advice. We don't adhere to advice. And honestly, most of these people, I'm going to throw myself in there as well. I know what I need to do to save money. That's not what's stopping me from saving money. It's my decisions. It's that I have Netflix, Amazon, HBO. It's that I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Like my car, blah, 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 blah. If I have a car loan, a phone bill, utilities, the agent will go and shop all of that for me, like to reduce my costs to the optimal degree, and it'll continue to do that. If I have Netflix and I haven't used it in a month, it'll cancel the subscription. I was paying for YouTube TV for a year without knowing it. It's $100 a month. Okay. What I'm saying is that the 1.2 to 2.5 will need more advice than ever, and they will value the human more than ever before. The 99% will get advice for the first time, and it will be through these decision making agents.
So there was a funny quote that I heard a guy say. I just pulled it up while you were saying because it just reminded me of it. And it's this: if more information was the answer, then we'd
Mm,
all be billionaires with perfect abs,
right.
right? But
Yeah.
it's not. It's not information. It's
Right.
like you're saying, it's the carrying out, it's the decisions of now that I know
Yeah.
that, what do I do?
I know I've like talked way too much, but there's one more piece of research here that is super interesting. And it's behavioral science. The research study was we took two groups of people, right? One group, I asked them to, and it wasn't me, but the researcher asked them, remember these three numbers, just three random numbers, 3, 2, 1, whatever, doesn't matter. Sit in a room for 10 minutes, and then they had to walk down the hall to a different room and report the number. They thought that the project was about remembering the number. The other group was asked to remember seven numbers: 5, 4, 3, 2, 8, 9, whatever. And they did the same thing, walk down the hall in 10 minutes and report the number. While both groups walked down the hall, one of the other participants offered them a snack. They had apple and a chocolate cake or a chocolate cookie or something. The ones that only had to remember three numbers, like 80% of them took the apple. On the other side, 80% of the people that had to remember seven numbers took the chocolate cookie or cake. This is about, and this like opens the door to a whole nother conversation, but low income, low educated Americans, most of America, is distracted by the stress of day to day life. And it's like remembering seven numbers, but it's, I got to do this bill. I got to pick my kid up. I got to remember that thing, rent's due, groceries, all this stuff. And so when it comes time for us to make an in the moment decision, they almost always make the wrong decision. But it's not their fault. It's because their mind is occupied. And so they can't weigh the consequences of a chocolate cake versus an apple. They can't weigh the consequences of getting McDonald's instead of making the salad. They can't weigh the consequences of not buying the shoes or like the expensive shoes versus the non-expensive shoes. So when you have less on your mind, you're just more, you're free to weigh the decisions is the point of this. And so I guess my point is exactly what yours was. It's not the information, it's the decision making. Our decision making, most of the United States, is altered by the fact that we're not in a good financial position, that we don't have it all figured out, that we have the stress of daily life. This decision maker will take all of that away from us, in theory, and it will just make the right decisions, as if your mind is not encumbered by the stresses of daily life.
You know what? As you were talking, I was thinking about like a lot of these things are called AI agents, right? And I was thinking about how in the financial advisory world, like, there's kind of like it's kind of a bad word, like agents, right? Like if
Yeah.
I'm like an insurance agent or I'm a broker, that doesn't sound good. So I was just thinking about it's kind of funny to think that like these agents actually might be take on a whole new term. You know, if you have like an actual financial agent and all the cool things they'll be able to do to you, might benefit from a rebranding before then with a
Yeah.
different term.
The entire insurance industry. Yeah, and agency, right? It's what it's all about, but it's yeah, it's just super interesting that I mean, this research is blowing my mind. I personally, because of the company that I work for, and you get a front row seat to this stuff all the time, but I saw my boss create a new feature for our product. It took a team 6 months without AI, like without the AI tools that we have at our disposal, and he did it in 1 weekend and it
Gee,
blew my mind. I mean, it is incredible what talented people can create with these tools. And there still needs to be talented people.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I feel like that is gonna be the differentiator. It's the actual creativity that somebody brings into these, right? Like, because if that is if everybody has equal access to knowledge, which to some extent I feel like someone could make that case that like basically since the internet has existed, we've all had access to pretty much the same information, right? So it's like, cool, what are you gonna do with it? All right, well now the barrier to creating things is so much lower. So it does seem like if I had a younger person asking me for advice, I feel like the secret sauce is creativity. Like if you're wanting to differentiate yourself from somebody, it's like, cool. What kind of interesting problems can you think of that
Yep.
nobody else is, and how to do that in a different way? And I feel like that's going to be the differentiators going forward.
Yeah. I mean, every business is just solving a problem. We learned this, we're intimately aware of this at Jump, and we are advised by folks that focus on positioning every new feature and pricing tier as the answer to one of wealth management's problems. Problems are not going away. They're going to change, is what we're talking about. If all of the problems that exist today are now, taken over by agents or whatever, or solved, there will still be a whole new set of problems in however many, in 5 years when the world's changed. There'll be new problems, right? Maybe it's going to be like a lot of people talk about how law is being disrupted. I think there's going to be more legal cases than ever before because of technology's agents being able to do things on your behalf and you not approving them or so on and so forth. Like there's going to be opportunities to solve more and more problems. It will look different than it does today. And I don't think we'll be doing them for big companies because big companies are going to be extremely interested in cutting all human capital because those are its greatest costs. The benefits that they pay to humans, the insurance, everything that involves with employing a human, it will make sense to get rid of them. I think that goes back to my point. There will be more entrepreneurs than ever before solving these problems because they'll be able to create the solution themselves.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. It's going to be a whole, like you were talking about democratizing access to financial advice in the same way as this is democratizing access to entrepreneurship. It's never been easier, right? Like one of the presentations that I did last year was about looking at the super globally of how many users are there of ChatGPT and then looking at, well, what is the upside of that? And if you look at the way that I did it is how many people have cell phones or smartphones in particular, and using that as like the upper benchmark. And it's a ridiculous number. It's like 70% of the world's population, adults anyways, adult population has a smartphone. Okay. So that means you probably have internet access, which then you're just one downloading of an app away from now having access to whatever you use, Gemini, Claude, whatever, doesn't matter. Right. So now you could legit, I mean, like, it's kind of funny because I think about these almost memes of like, I don't know, like a college student, like a Mark Zuckerberg, like creating Facebook in his dorm room. And now it's like actually the meme, instead of having a laptop, it would just be like, oh, it's just me doing this on my phone. I'll just create an app using an app. It's like a crazy new thing. I do want to just circle back to this network thing that we were talking about earlier, just because it's interesting to me. While we were talking, I went to the Fed's survey of consumer finances. It's a little bit out of date. The most recent one that they have is from 2022. They are collecting data. They collected the 2025 one, but it's not out yet. The median net worth in 2022. Before I say the number, any guesses? This is for U.S. adults.
US adults, so 18 and above.
Yep.
Net worth,
Yep. Net worth. So it'll be including financial assets and any housing equity. And then I'll give you.
120K.
That's pretty close. Yeah. So 192 is the
Okay.
median number.
Right.
But what's crazy, maybe we can link to this in here, but you can bifurcate this however you want. So one of the drop down options is by percentile of income. And that's where this gets crazy, is if you look at the net worth of the top 10% of income families, the 90th to the 100th percentile, their average net worth was 2.7 million versus the bottom 20%, their median net worth is 17,000. So that's where it gets kind of freaky when you're like, okay, if this starts to negatively impact these people, that's where, I don't know, things get interesting.
Well, and even in both scenarios, right? So let's say Doomsday plays out or AI Euphoria plays out. If AI Euphoria plays out, the asset holders, the rich, the top 10%, those are the only 10% own 90% of equities in the United States, right? So those people, if AI Euphoria happens, will be the beneficiaries of AI Euphoria, creating a new paradigm and an economy. And the rest get screwed, right? Like the bottom 90, they are worse off than they were before because AI Euphoria pushed equities or whatever assets up by 100%. And so everybody, that 10% grew and everybody else's 17 grand just became this much less valuable. So even in the AI Euphoria state, the bottom is going to get screwed, I think, because they're just not asset participators. So in the doomsday, I think everybody, the white collar gets screwed, maybe brings them down. And well, maybe it is the opposite. Maybe that is, the true uh,
Equalizer.
yeah, the equalizer in the United States is we're redistributing wealth to the blue collar portion of America, the construction, the farms, the things that cannot be disrupted by a computer become more and more important. They garner more income, more interest in jobs, wages, and the white collar comes down. But the skepticism in me says that this top 10% just starts buying farms, construction firms, HVACs, and then they own the blue collar work as well. That's the skeptic in me.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I had a story I was reading recently where a guy was a plumber, and then he bought he just, like, went big and started to he, like I don't know where he got the money for it, so I guess that's a side note, but he ended up, like, using AI to, like, market, and he grew this thing into, like, a $40 million a year, revenue business, and was like, "Whoa, what the heck?" This guy went from making, I don't know, whatever, 80 grand a year to doing really well, so maybe that is the new economy. I don't know, the cream's on top, right? The rich get richer.
It should be that though, those are the stories that are inspiring when a plumber then owns his own business instead of a private equity firm buying up a bunch of HVACs and rolling them up because blue collar work's not going to be disrupted. There are just different ways to distribute that ownership. Unfortunately, private equity and firms that are focused on rolling up assets, these aggregators can do so at a much larger scale. They can do it in cash. It's just easier for them. It's a path of least resistance. So anyway, wow, lot going on. Lot going
Yeah.
on.
Let me just ask, let's try to bring this to a close. If you had one recommendation for financial advisors, given everything we talked about, given today's conversation, is there anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I would say AI has now the ability, yes, to make you more efficient, but also for firms to reduce costs meaningfully and to make your advisors more effective as well. We actually, something I want to talk with you about, we had a PhD just finish up work on how to, for the first time ever, this is the first time this has ever existed, how to convert more prospects to clients. We have statistically significant causal relationships with four variables, four things the advisor can do on a call or on a meeting to improve their likelihood of success. This is organic growth. This is the part of organic growth that has never been explored before, right? Going deeper, improving your conversion with confidence. Forever, we've been increasing how many prospects we could talk to. And I think the economics of that are unstable. It's very expensive and it's hard to judge really the ROI. If you can just improve the conversion of if you're talking to 20 prospects in the next year, you want each of them to be interested in working with you. It's up to you to decide if you do or don't. But that's going to be uber interesting. And I think advisors should be on the lookout for those tools, and they're going to come up in some of the tools that have mass adoption among advisors today. So that would be my take is focus on, yes, continue to try to make efficiency gains, but effectiveness, performance. Every meeting is an opportunity to grow revenue, and the only way that you can truly improve it is by improving your performance through, I think, scientific or data backed methods.
Right. Yeah, I love it. And I think to some extent there will be this almost new science, right? It's almost like what you're describing. It's scientificating. I don't know, that's not a word, but like turning these things of, anecdotal stories to some extent that we've heard over years to like actually creating a science around it to
Yes.
validated with actual good data kind of in the wild, not just like these surveys that are like, I don't know which one of these are best, right? It's like, no, it's just a new data, right? So I think it's like a new science for people.
Yeah. Data science, too, is still a field that I believe is very attractive for young people to get into or look into. I have been interviewing folks, I have been talking with folks within the industry. Not a lot of people understand, right, the difference between correlation, causation, the models that you can use as we get more and more data, we'll have more and more opportunities to use that data for predictive or causal analytics. And you have to really understand how to structure the data, which models to employ. This isn't advice for advisors, but this
Right.
is just advice for, it's just something I'm seeing as like still a huge need. Will AI make that obsolete in 3 years? Maybe, probably. There's a firm called Pecan AI. It's pretty good. It's democratizing machine learning, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, man, we covered a lot today. This has been awesome. I want to rewatch it myself if we're done and take notes on the notes that I already had.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you links. We got like 19 links to show the audience. It's gonna
Fair
be
enough.
full of graphs. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, Liam. I think we'll call it a day for today.
All right, Professor.
All
Talk
right.
soon.
Thanks for everyone listening.